Hello and welcome to this special Q&A edition of Inside the Piranha Club with me, Rebecca Clancy.
And me, Ben Hunt.
And me, Mark Van Bryans.
Everyone all right? That was pretty slow.
Yeah, Ben's excited about his garden, isn't he?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
He's going to kill the bees, though.
No. We've got like one of those bee things, not hive. What, like a bug hotel? It's an Airbnb. Come on, it's better than that.
That's all. I got it, Ben.
Thank you.
Everyone enjoy a weekend off racing?
Yeah, I went and watched some very lower league football in Ben's old haunt in Carshalton. So he sent some good pub recommendations, such good pub recommendations that I can't remember really getting home. But yeah, it was a lovely day. The sun was out and everyone seemed to have a nice weekend, didn't they? I know you had quite a different weekend, I'd say, Beck, didn't you, really?
I had a very different weekend. I went to a funeral up near Peterborough where I went to school. They hired out Burley House, which is a very grand estate up there. It was amazing. We arrived at 6:30 to a champagne reception, and at 8:30 we all went outside for fireworks, of which the guy whose funeral it was, his ashes were in the fireworks. Never been to anything like it. I think it is fair to say it was a celebration of life. It was, yeah, I'm not really sure how I felt about it, but it was, yeah, I mean, he was absolutely the life and soul of the party. He would have adored it. So it was a very fitting send-off for him.
Looking at Ben's face, I need to know what he thinks about that. Ben, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that's disgusting. You might have ingested said dead person.
Right, no, listen. People kept saying this
that?
to me. Did you keep your mouth closed? And I said, listen, there are fireworks. Yeah. Do you know how far away from us they were? It's not like he just goes up and was standing at a bonfire. No, don't be ridiculous.
What goes up?
They were miles down the hill.
Someone's breathed. Honestly, I think that's a lovely idea, but I just think that's a bit gross.
It was fun.
How do you want to go,
really
Ben?
Fun.
Let's. It's Q&A. I'm going to start with one for you. How do you want to go?
You know, I've not really considered it, to be honest, Mark. I mean, I probably should. I'm getting on now.
Well, you can't bury yourself in the back garden now. Now you've had artificial turf.
No.
You know, whichever way he goes, he'll moan about it.
I'll tell you what, I have to let you know, that's quite a big life choice. I like the idea of a firework. I'd like a big rocket, though. I wouldn't want anyone to ingest me.
No, he's not in all of the fireworks. You put him in the big firework at the end, so you kind of know which one is him, basically. But so you've come around to the idea. It's funny, the amount of people I've told about this, and their initial reaction is, what? And then by the end of the conversation, they're thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do that for me.
Yeah, I was immediately on board.
No. What if it didn't go off? Because there's always one in the box that doesn't go off
it's
properly.
It's not like your wife is setting off fireworks in the back garden or the kids are holding sprinklers with you in them. This is a proper organised firework display run by a company who does it for a living. It's not like your budget back of your artificial grass going up in flames with you burning down the house after you've left the room.
I have actually got a fireworks story. When I lived in my old house, not far from Carshalton, Mark, but we had people round for the firework party, and all the kids were sat on the decking, and we had those bifo doors were all open, and anyway, I was down the end, and I lit the fireworks, and I had one of those tubs that you just light one fuse, and they just work all the way through. Quite a lazy man's fireworks thing, but quite easy at the time. But it was all very well until the box tipped over to point the house where all the kids are sat with all the blankets on and everything, and it just started firing fireworks into the back of my house, which was all rather scary because I was down one end of the garden. There's nothing I could do, and it was just shooting fireworks into the kitchen. So all the kids were diving for cover, and yeah, bit of chaos.
As a real you story.
Everyone survived.
I promised.
I
promised.
Good.
Well, yeah.
Good.
I promised the fireworks were slightly more professional like that. Of course, that happened to you. Right, shall we crack on? As you can probably imagine in a Q&A at this time.
I feel like we should, yeah.
We have a lot of questions. Yeah, we should. I'm not sure anyone's listening anymore, so it's fine. A lot of questions about Aston Martin and most notably Jonathan Wheatley after the news that he has resigned with immediate effect from Audi for what the team said was personal reasons. I promise we will come on to that because we have been flooded with questions about everything that's going on there, and we will get to them. But a first question I want to get to is one that was brought to us by Amy on YouTube. And I think this is a great question because it focuses on the cancellation of Bahrain and Saudi. And Amy would like to know, MMB, What has happened to all of the freight that was destined for the Middle East but now has nowhere to go?
Yeah, thank you, Amy. It's a very interesting question. I did a bit of digging about this and spoke to a few people yesterday. Essentially, nothing critical remains in the Middle East now from that freight. It's all everything they need to get out has been gotten out. Some bits were left in Bahrain after testing, as the race was only 6 weeks later. It made sense for non urgent stuff could stay where it was and be used again when the teams were planning, obviously, to go back to Bahrain. But anything they needed that they should have with them, they have more than one kit anyway, and there'd normally be more than one kit on the move circumnavigating the globe at any one time. So for those key things that are locked down in Bahrain still, there will be a secondary kit somewhere in the world. Let's be honest now, it'll be somewhere around Japan, won't it? Airspace has been closed, obviously, around Bahrain for obvious reasons, but I'm sure we've all been across it. There's a road bridge into Saudi Arabia, and that's presented the chance to get freight out via road, via the trucks for things that they need to get out. So that's also been key. But essentially, there's nothing vital left there that will mean that, teams are going to be running low on things, or Formula One are going to be running low on things. So the show goes on despite all of this. And I suppose this is one of the reasons we see multiple freights. We see multiple versions of what the teams need to go racing, because, we've seen it before. It's not necessarily this that happens. There could be issues on board boats when they're already freely allowed to move. These delays happen. So whilst this is a more pointed version of it, they've worked a way around it. Yes, there is some bits left in Bahrain, but they're not essential to the circus continuing, if you like.
So did they have cars heading for Bahrain and Saudi? Did they have, was there anything else that was on its way? Where is all that stuff now? Is it just back in, because Formula One organises all of the freight, we should say that, with DHL. A nice little plug for them, their logistics partner. Formula One, the teams basically pay Formula One to ship everything around the world for them. So where is all of that stuff now?
Well, some of it, obviously, as we just said there, some of it is still, if you like, stuck in Bahrain, but that's non-essential stuff. We've got a lot in Japan. The rest now will be, as far as I'm aware, some will make it early over to Miami and places like that. And yeah, some will be, if you like, mothballed for a little bit longer when it would have been getting used in the Middle East. So yeah, I think that the crucial bit here is that we're not going to turn up to watch the Japanese or Miami Grand Prix and there's stuff missing. I think to the untrained eye, none of that freight that's there or in the middle of the ocean or wherever it has ended up because of these sensitivities, if you like, it's all going to be where it needs to be when it needs to be there. But like you said, there will be stuff now moving to Miami early. There will be stuff being parked and used later, but that's all factored in. You mentioned DHL there. They've worked with F1 for years. They know how to do it. They've got the trucks. They've got the planes. They've got the way of getting all this stuff around quickly and also in a manner that means that we can still go racing when these issues arise.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, Ben, next question is for you. Firstly, MB, and I checked, this is an RMMB, separate MB, on Spotify said, happy birthday, old man, from someone who is 45, so younger than you. There you go. But this is a question from Carl Corrie, also on Spotify, around the regulations. So we obviously did a big preview around the regulations because a lot has changed this year, of which we won't go into because if anyone saw Ben's 1 minute moan last time round, he doesn't like people talking about the new regulations anymore. But the question from Carl... Yeah, I know, you little grumpy man. The question from Carl is, wasn't it the politicians like Toto Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, and Stefano Domenicali, the CEO and chairman of F1, that decided on these new regulations? So subsequently asking the engineers to make do with whatever they can do for F1 racing. So if you're going to blame anyone for not liking the racing this year, it should be Wolff and Domenicali. That is his question. What do you think, Ben?
Look, it's all the teams are brought to the table with the FIA and F1. It's part of the Concord Agreement, so there's lots of people. There's no singular person who's responsible for these rules, but I do think that they are moulded and shaped by people from an engineering background, which is why the rulebook's so convoluted. It's very tricky for us to pick apart whenever there's a conflict of interests and someone challenging a part of the technical regulations. So I do think that there's a number of people to blame for putting it all together. Actually, is it to blame? Yes, I suppose they are to blame for putting it all together. Not just Wolf and Dominicali. There's lots of people. So I take your point. The teams do vote for them and they do push them through. There's some suggestion that the engine rules, we went in this direction to appease and to encourage new manufacturers to come in or to stay in to sport. I think that is an area which is definitely worth a debate. Should the sport have been more strict and turned around and said, look, we're not interested in that anymore. We just want it to be entertainment and sport and fun rather than the business, road relevance, which we often talk about. And all of a sudden we become a very boring podcast talking about rules and regulations. And I think that we just need to drop this as per my rant. We are left with a product which is different to what we had last year, but I think we've just got to get on and embrace it. I think that it did serve up some certainly good laps in China and Australia, and I'm sure it will do this weekend in Japan as well.
And dear listener, don't worry, Ben's 1 Minute Moan will return for our Japan preview, which we will be recording later in the week. Right, MMB question.
Yes, I've been working on this 1 minute moan. It's an extensive list now, actually. So you'll be good to.
Are you actually going to keep it within 1 minute?
No, definitely I can't. It's the problem.
Are you practicing? Like, you timing yourself?
Yeah, in front of the mirror.
Right. Okay. Well, we look forward to that. And we will be timing you. A question for MMB from Reese Davies on YouTube, who would like to know, what are your thoughts on FOM TV direction? And I think the question here is about the world feed that we all see, because we all know that none of us saw Lando Norris cross the line in Abu Dhabi last year. It's the same team of people who are in charge of the feed that we all see. So whether you watch F1 TV, whether you watch Sky, we're all watching the same pictures. We get the same pictures in the media centre. MMB, can you just talk us through about how this all works and why actually you can't really blame the broadcasters for what we're seeing on TV?
Yeah, you made the point there. I mean, Ben's 1 minute moan obviously last week was about the commentary, but they're not commentating live out the window, if you like. They have their commentary box. They see the start-finish line normally. But other than that, they're relying on the same feed that we are seeing at home. But that's not, if you like, a Sky feed. Obviously, before and after the race and the highlights before and after the race is up to Sky. But as soon as the lights go out, we hear the music and the car and the grid. All of that is FOM. That is their operation. That is the pictures that they're deciding to show. And wherever you're watching the world, whether you're watching the Sky feed, the F1 TV feed, wherever, you will have those same pictures. Now, I think a lot of the issues we're having here is it's another battleground almost for that argument of new versus old. Back in the day, there were a lot fewer cameras. The stuff at the front mattered more than anything else around the track. There weren't particularly cameras in pit lanes and things like that. You go back to ITV. I remember when you had someone like Ted or Louise Goodman in the pit lane, that was from ITV cameras because they were there covering it purely for that. But nowadays there are, any number of cameras. I think even in Bahrain testing, there were 40 odd FOM cameras there just to film testing. Now, that new v old what I talked about, I think is because there's obviously that shift now that we see towards, we see more family, we see more girlfriends, we see more partners, we see more celebrities and things whilst the action on track is going on. Now, I remember Carlos Sainz last year, didn't he, spoke about none of his overtakes being shown because they were too busy going to the girlfriends and things in the crowd during the Singapore Grand Prix. Now, I get that, but it is part of this new target audience, isn't it? Of course, the on-track stuff matters and will always matter, and it always should matter. But in this new era, if you like, we also see the celebrity angle. F1 has to be seen to be desirable, so showing the glamorous partners of the drivers or the Beyoncés of this world stood in Lewis Hamilton's garage, things like that. That's key. Beyonce.
Surely Kim Kardashian.
Is that your coach?
Is
yes, come on,
is that my reference point,
get up
Beyonce?
To speed.
Hold on, was she? No, I'm saying that because I think she was.
You're saying I'm
Googling.
old.
Listeners, I'm just Googling Beyonce F1 2025.
No, come on. Kim Kardashian is currently in Tokyo with Lewis Hamilton. For a cultural reference, that's the one you're going for.
Okay. I meant more what we've
seen. Can you imagine Kim Kardashian in Suzuka, though? Do you think he's really told her what Suzuka's like?
I'd like to point out, have we seen her in Lewis Hamilton's garage? Or am I talking of an actual example, which was the Las Vegas Grand Prix last year? Beyonce and Jay-Z were both there. We saw lots of them on screen, cutting to them every time something exciting might have happened on track. Quick, let's get Beyonce's reaction. Yes, Kim Kardashian's in Japan. You can go back and we can edit this out so I don't sound like I'm Ben's age. So yeah, I get Carlos Sainz's point, but is an overtake further down the field that might not really mean anything even to the points? Is that going to get as much social response or coverage as seeing a Beyonce and Jay-Z, or if Kim Kardashian happens to be there, or we saw Cynthia Erivo fresh from the Wicked film being released? That generates clicks and interests outside of that F1 sphere. So I get why we have this cut to and from garages, and once they seem to realise a famous person's there, the camera's trained on them for the whole race. We know when you go to a Grand Prix weekend, the promoter will circulate a list of celebrities that are there. I think Bec and I often used to go through them and list how many we knew, and they were normally less than. There you go, less than 5 normally would be my list. It's not my world, but yeah, Kim Kardashian was never on it. But yeah, it is that strange
interesting.
thing.
Just on that list, just to say as well, when it comes round, they tell us how many social media followers those people have.
Exactly, that proves my point. This is a desirable product now, but it's a desirable product not just for petrol heads, or it's gear heads if you're in America, I suppose. I hate that phrase, but yeah, this is now a product that's sold around the world as not only a racing sporting product, but an entertainment product. So if you've got some of the biggest stars in the world, then you're going to show them off. And if that's at the detriment of seeing someone pass 13th place to take 12th place or whatever's happening there, it's going to win out every time, isn't it?
I'm sorry, I'm going to come back to Gearhead.
It is Gearhead, isn't it? That's right, isn't it?
Why isn't it Gashead? Surely it's Gashead. Petrolhead in the UK, Gashead in the US.
It's definitely
also,
Gearhead,
secondly, it's
isn't
that
it?
debate, isn't it, about...
Listeners, I'm going back to Google. I'm going back to Google.
Right, you go back to Google while I make this point. It's sport versus entertainment, isn't it? I mean, it's the never-ending debate. And let's be honest, what Liberty have done since taking over ownership of F1 in the start of 2017 is pretty amazing. They came in and said they wanted 20 Super Bowls a year, as in all of the entertainment that goes around it, the shows, the celebs, all of that side of it. We're now up to 24, though I would... Not all 24 are that interesting. But actually, they have done an amazing job. And it is that never-ending debate of entertainment versus sport. And like you were saying there, MMB, about the social side of it and the clips, I think they do need to be a bit careful not to tarnish the raw product. I think, yes, overtakes do matter. No matter where in the field they are. I think that is ultimately what we're all watching this for. I think sometimes when the racing's a bit boring, sure, cut to whoever you want. But I think you can have both, because these races are, minimum an hour and a half long, pretty much. Okay, Monaco's an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, but just on Monaco, Ben, I was going to say this to you. Do you remember quite a few years ago now, I think even pre-COVID,
yeah,
I remember you and I sitting in the Monaco Media Centre, and back in the day where Monaco, as a standalone race, used to control its own world feed. Thankfully, they don't anymore. And that actually ended up being the final year. I think it was 2019 off the top of my head. And it was utterly dreadful, to the point that even the commentators were having to apologise. And they're constantly saying, sorry, we're not controlling the pictures. So at least it's better than that Monaco debacle that we had that year.
I do remember that year of the disastrous Monaco TV director. That was hilarious. It reminded me of, I alluded to this when we were talking about our pre-season testing, where we used to go to Jerez and there used to be someone, I imagine this, changing the cameras by pressing buttons, going from CCTV camera to CCTV camera to show you images of cars going around the track. It was that bad. Anyway, I digress.
Yes, we have improved. And obviously with the Apple F1 movie that has happened, a lot of those cameras are now being brought into the broadcast, and particularly for those of you lucky enough in the US to watch the Apple feed. Ben, a question we have had multiple times. And as someone who has just written a book on Lewis Hamilton, don't you love all the plugs I give you? No wonder you're a Sunday Times bestseller.
Pretty good. Look,
Ben,
doing thumbs up.
Available
in supermarkets.
Unlike Zach Brown's book. Anyway, Ben, can Lewis Hamilton win an 8th world title this year with Ferrari?
Yes.
Good, let's move on.
Why not?
Oh.
Absolutely, yes. I think that, car's great at the start, isn't it? I just think that he was unlucky not to be on the podium in Melbourne, and made up for it in China. I think he is there. A lot depends on what happens with the Mercedes engine advantage, whether that does get reeled in. But they're not talking about anything to do with Ferrari just yet. Even the rotating wing is sort of under the radar. So yeah, I think it's looking quite good, quite promising for Ferrari. And it's been a while since we've said that.
And he seems very buoyant.
Yeah, well,
Well, you mentioned Kim Kardashian.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is it. So maybe that's had some sort of positive impact. New race engineer, obviously, still to be appointed. But yeah, look, it was always going to take a little while for him to adjust to the time at Ferrari, and it feels like he has now done that. So, now is his chance to really sort of come back at it. It was no secret that he hated the ground effect car, and he prefers this type of formula, and he's enjoying pressing all the buttons. So with all the overtake mode and whatnot. So fair play to him. He's hung in there and he's enjoying it, which is not the same as someone like Fernando Alonso, who's clearly not having any fun at the moment.
Has he had his baby yet?
I think that's an important topic actually, because they announced that
Fatherhood.
he won't be taking part in FP1. Yes, no, because he's not taking part in FP1 in Japan. Now, I wonder if he will take any part in Japan if the baby's there.
He's not taking part in FP1 because they're throwing in Jack Crawley, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're using one of their rookie sessions.
But, yeah, they are. But what happens if the baby arrives? Will he be there for FP2?
Well, we saw Max in Miami, didn't we? That was the will he, won't he arrive and race in Miami, and then he was there to catch the baby and then leave, essentially, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, he wouldn't put it past Fernando to use it as an excuse to not drive the car. Look, look, he's done it before, hasn't he? McLaren. Look, when he absolutely hated driving that McLaren, he missed Monaco to go and drive the Indy 500.
He was given permission, obviously, to do such by Zach Brown.
Yeah, probably on the condition that he stopped moaning about that car.
Yeah, look, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I know we're going to come onto it, but it's Honda's home race. He's there. I don't know. Maybe he won't turn up.
Does Stoffel Van Dorn finally get another drive in F1 as their reserve driver?
There you go.
Maybe.
Well, because do you remember he was the Mercedes reserve
knocking
driver
around there
when
now,
Lewis Hamilton got COVID?
True.
And they ended up putting George Russell in the car and he still didn't get a drive. Poor bloke. Very nice guy. Look, listen, we are going to move on to Aston Martin, but just before we do, as I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, I've been putting polls on our Spotify episodes. And so I'm just going to give you some of the results very quickly. So I asked on one of them, should the drivers stop complaining about the new F1 regulations? 33% of you said yes, 66% said no, which I thought was quite interesting because they probably like the moaning as much as you do, Ben. I also asked, is the racing like Mario Kart? And this surprised me. 100% of you said yes. So there you go. And the final poll I put on, I said, do you think the 2026 regulations need to be changed already? 25% of you said yes, and 30% of you said no, and the other 37% of you said you can decide after 3 races. So thank you very much. I enjoy putting those polls on. They will be on every episode. We do look at them. I really enjoy that you guys engage with us. So thank you very much. Right, let's move on to Aston Martin off the back of that announcement that Jonathan Wheatley has left Audi, as I mentioned. Okay, I guess the first question is, and I'll take this one, why would Jonathan Wheatley leave Audi after a year? The statement was very clear. He's leaving with immediate effect, which is slightly surprising because not often they get put on gardening leave. He is based out in Switzerland, and actually Ben and I were in Goodwood last year for the revival, and we bumped into Jonathan Wheatley, didn't we? And we were talking to him about it, and he was out in Switzerland and he was looking for somewhere to live. He'd gone out there with his wife. They were really enjoying it, but his kids weren't making the move over to Switzerland. And I think we have seen this time and time and time again. We saw it with Andreas Seidel, didn't we, at McLaren? He moved over, his family stayed in Germany when he came to McLaren. And I think it is very difficult. We saw it with Sean Bratchis when Liberty first took over. And do you remember Sean Bratchis all those many years ago? He came over from New York. His family didn't come with him. And I think that's a very difficult position for people to be in.
How can you forget those eyebrows?
I know. But Jonathan Wheatley is extremely close to his children. In fact, the Autosport Awards that we were at last year, his +1 was one of his sons. So he's very close to his family. So I think for me personally, he's probably found that quite difficult. I think personal reasons is the actual reason why, not just one of those fluffy things that they write so that you stop asking questions. I think the idea of being based in the UK would be very attractive to him. Obviously, he was at Red Bull before, which was in Milton Keynes. If, as we all suspect will happen, he goes to Aston Martin, their brand spanking, shiny new possibly not really working factory is in Silverstone, quite literally over the road from the circuit. So I think if Aston Martin really have come knocking for him, I think it's an incredibly attractive move to move home. He's still got his house, and that's where the children were living. They're older, by the way. They're not like 5 and 7 before we start questioning his parenting. They are older. But yeah, he still has the house where he lives in that Motorsport Valley. So I think actually it is a very understandable reason. And I also think the other thing is I'm not entirely convinced that structure within Audi with Mattia Binotto being on a par with him. No one reported into the other. I'm not entirely sure that's what Jonathan Wheatley, when he got his first team principal role, wanted. I think he wanted to be able to take charge, to make the decisions. And I think that structure at Audi probably wasn't really for him.
Yeah, he wasn't a Binotto hire. I think that's the key. They had agreed to sign Jonathan first and then Binotto second. So, yeah, that was always going to be a little bit of a conflict and trying to look after both those people and try not to step on each other's toes. Try saying that after a few coffees. So, yes, I always thought it was always going to be quite, a tricky relationship to go through. The other aspect is that Aston are in such a mess and they are desperately in need of someone like him who has been able to prove that he can lead a team and turn things around very quickly, and that commands a price. And I think that he is in the box seat and he can pretty much, name his price sort of thing.
Okay, so when the Audi announcement came out about Wheatley leaving, we had this quite extraordinary statement from Aston Martin. Actually, specifically, the statement was from Lawrence Stroll. And it was all about the fact that people were writing headlines saying Jonathan Wheatley is going to replace Adrian Newey. Now, actually, none of us thought that was the case. We all just thought Adrian Newey would go back to his drawing board, which is where he performs best, and that Wheatley would actually be taking the weight of the team principal role off him, which none of us ever thought was permanent, as we have previously mentioned. The statement said, with the current speculation surrounding Adrian Newey's role in our team, I want to take this opportunity to set the record straight. I would like to reaffirm that Adrian Newey is my partner, an important shareholder. He is the managing technical partner, and he and I have a true partnership built on a shared vision of success for the company. We do things differently here, and while we don't currently adopt the traditional team principal role that you see elsewhere, it is by design. I mean, that statement says we don't currently adopt the traditional team principal role. Try saying that after a few cups of tea. Right, Ben, so is Jonathan Wheatley going to Aston Martin, and what does it mean for Adrian Newey?
I think that statement was really just a case of trying to steer the narrative in the sense that Adrian Newey's not being demoted. I think that some people had gone to that conclusion. That isn't the case because he still has a shareholding. What was the title he said in the statement? Because
managing technical partner.
Well, yeah, exactly. So he'll keep that title. His job will be responsible for overseeing the design of the team, but it's the mistake in making him the team principal in the first place, where you are responsible for budgets and partnerships and announcements and everything else, all the hiring and firing, the day-to-day running of the business. That is the package that Jonathan will now do. Whether he'll be sporting director, team principal, it doesn't really matter in terms of the title. It's just the responsibilities. It's quite clear that Adrian will now be allowed to get on and design, which is what we always say is what he's good at, and Jonathan will be good at the operational side of things, getting the team up to speed, get them moving in the right direction, which is exactly what they need. So, he's a perfect fit. I think it is a good thing for him to go there. It's what they need. It's a good challenge for Jonathan as well, and I think he'll relish it. So, I do believe that if he were to go and he was allowed to join soon, because I'm not sure what the gardening leave implications are for leaving Audi. He hasn't been there that long, but of course they will be locking him into some period of time. But we were able to see the impact that he made at Sauber last year very quickly. Pit stops were quick. and there was so much, quick, easy wins, which is exactly what Aston Martin now need to lift morale and to move forward and to keep the drivers happy and sponsors happy. That's exactly what they need at the moment. So I hope it comes off for them. Yeah. Makes sense.
He got Nico Hülkenberg on the podium finally. But it's hard to believe that Adrian Newey and Jonathan Wheatley worked together at Red Bull. I cannot fathom a world in which Adrian Newey hasn't actually put Jonathan Wheatley's name forward for this position, wanting to work together again. As you mentioned, Ben, seeing what he's done at Sauber. Newey is absolutely in the loop if Wheatley is getting hired here.
Yeah, they've worked together. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses, don't they? It feels like they're putting the band back together, just without the lead singer at the moment. Whether that will come down the line, I don't know.
Who's the lead singer, Verstappen or Horner?
Well, that's a good question.
Can you have it's like John and who am I thinking of from Beatle? Paul and John, isn't it? Yeah. Again, showing my age there, Ben. I do think it's worth mentioning. Like, Adrian Newey would be delighted by this, wouldn't he? He doesn't want to be that team principal. He doesn't want to be a de facto team boss. It's never interested him. He's got his drawing board. He's got his stake in the team. He doesn't want to be the guy then responsible for those other things that really are not in his wheelhouse at all. That whole situation, though, it's very strange, that whole Aston situation. And I know you guys for years have enjoyed the football analogy, so I'm going to bring one in a little bit here. But Aston in recent years has resembled almost quite a badly run football club, hasn't it? There's a great piece actually on The Only Story in Town about Spurs. And while it's not a direct comparison, you'd have to bring in other clubs as well. You've got a billionaire owner who's desperate for success and thinks the way to do that is to throw money at it. And we've learned that isn't the case. Go and get all the best people and put square pegs in round holes just because you've hired all those people doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to bring in success. Even if those people were all coming in, they want to do their best, they want to succeed. None of those people Aston have brought in and it's failed have not tried. It just hasn't clicked. You bring in, they've got partnerships, they've got all those things that bring in money, but it's still not working. Even to the level of, do you blame the Spurs players? Yes, to a degree. Do you blame the Aston drivers? Lance in particular, he's had struggles in that car for a few years. It is such a strange situation to see play out in front of us, really, that this team that's got its new facilities, that's got its grand designer, if you like, that's got Fernando Alonso, a two-time world champion, that goes and gets all these technical pods, but they just can't seem to make it work. They just can't seem to string it together and make it work. It's like they've got all the jigsaw pieces, but they just haven't taken the lid off the box yet to actually work out how to put it all together.
I mean, they've got the great stadium at Spurs, haven't they? And it's like the great factory at Aston.
Yeah, that Spurs stadium is only 2019, £1 billion. It's an incredibly similar story. MMB, talking of the money, staying with you, how much will it have cost Aston Martin to get Jonathan Wheatley away from Audi, if indeed they have paid him or paid them? Because we all know the contracts aren't really worth the paper they're written on, particularly if you can throw some money at it. And what kind of money or salary will Wheatley be expecting if, as fully expected, he does end up as team principal or whatever his job title will be at Aston Martin?
Contract is the great starting point for a court case, isn't it? Someone once famously said. Yeah, I think, look, it's going to cost them, let's say, a pretty penny, isn't it, if they're behind this.
We want numbers, exit. Mark. Come on, Come on,
Hold on, let me. It's going to cost them a lot of money.
Yeah, Google again.
Yeah, I'll Google it. If they've gone directly to get him out of that team, which we can only imagine they have, given the immediacy with how this is happening, then Lance Stroll is going to have had to make a good offer to entice Wheatley and to entice Audi to let Wheatley out of that
in
contract.
The millions.
This Audi project. Oh, 100%. Yeah, we've spoken about Audi and what they're putting behind it. This isn't going to get somebody from again, let's use the football analogy. You're not suddenly going to pick up a second division manager to take over your club. You're going to one of your main rivals, if you like, who are newer than you into the sport, but are doing better than you. So that enticement has to be there, doesn't it? And look, for all of Jonathan Wheatley's positives, if the money's good, then the negotiations become a lot easier, don't they? He's got this reputation and experience as a top-tier sporting director at Red Bull, and the success that's come with that. He's got this experience now with Audi that, albeit short-term, that team principal de facto role, if you like, he can carry that across. And Ben mentioned gardening leave. because he left Audi with immediate effect, just 2 races into this new season, it is likely that he would face a large and significant period of gardening leave where he can't work for a rival. We saw that, in fact, with Adrian Newey, didn't we? But I suppose the cost, if you like, to release him immediately, if Aston wanted to have him immediately, then the cost would be astronomical, because they'd have to almost settle on buying him out of that gardening leave, if you like, which would take that number, which you said, into the millions, just higher and higher and higher. You know, he was less than 12 months into that tenure. It's not like he'd been there for years and was coming to the end and they were like golden handshake territory. So yeah, whatever Aston have paid to go get him, if indeed that is what's happened, it is a substantial sum of money, I think it's fair to say. And another substantial sum of money. You know, we just said then about Lawrence Stroll. He's happy to spend this money, and this is the latest, I don't know, Galactico, if you like, that he's gone to get for the paddock, that he's putting into his teams to hope that it works.
I've googled F1 team principal salaries, and it has the AI blurb at the top says that Fred Vasseur is on between £3.9 million and £5.6 million. Andreas Stella, £5.2 million. James Fowles estimated £4.1 million.
Yeah, he's got to be in that. He's going to be in that league.
Yeah.
He'll be in that league, I think. He knows Aston can pay it. He knows they are not desperate, but he knows that they're determined, if you like, to succeed, and that they're bringing him in is the hope that he can help change that narrative. So he'll be well up in those higher echelons of what TPs are getting paid.
Well, there's no point having the greatest front three ever on a football pitch if you don't have a decent goalkeeper, is there? So, you know, all the cogs have to go into place for this to work. Right. Thank you very much for your questions. I really enjoyed that. How about you?
I learnt a lot about, from Mark there and yourself, Bec. That was great. I'm enjoying these colour scheme today, by the way.
I went papaya
Mark,
today.
What colour do you think you're wearing?
I mean, I know this is orange, but this is a question, isn't it? Is that navy?
No.
Is that like a navy? No. Oh,
You do know it's like a blue tone.
Well, there you go. I would like to say, though, the big question that's gone unanswered that we've already asked is how Ben wants to finally go off this mortal coil. So,
oh gosh,
maybe we'll have to bring that up on the next pod, Ben. We can keep the listeners hooked on that for the next pod. We've got your minute moan and your, how we're going to bury you, essentially.
Lovely.
Right. Oh my goodness, absolutely no one's listening anymore. Right, so and thank you if you are. Oh, we do really appreciate it massively.
What about the suggestions?
Let's suggest some suggestions in. I like it.
Okay, yeah, please suggest how you would like to bury Ben. Don't cause the burial, but just how you'd like it to happen.
Ben, I've got a question. If you'd like, if you had F1 said, look, Ben, you've been great. You've been a great servant to Formula One. We will sprinkle your ashes on the circuit of your choice.
Yeah.
What circuit are you picking?
What a great question. I can guarantee F1 are never saying that.
No, yeah, absolutely. Mokpo.
You love Mokpo. Right, okay, he's also not probably even joking. Right, thank you very much for listening. We love all your questions. Please do keep sending them in. We will absolutely do another special Q&A. You can contact us on our Instagram and TikTok at Inside the Piranha Club. Same for YouTube and Spotify. And I will continue to put those polls on as well. Please do get in touch. We love hearing from you. We will be back later in the week for the Japan Grand Prix preview. Lots to discuss ahead of what will be the final race before the April break, as it's now being dubbed. But until then, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.